Hi, James. Hi,
Hey
James.
Jess,
How's it going?
how you doing?
Doing good. Doing
How
good.
was your week?
My
Fill
week's
us in.
been, yeah, just been really tiring. It's just been exhausting. And it just kept going and going and going. Yeah. I
One of
just,
those weeks.
yeah, I was just freaking over it. By the time we reached like Friday, I'm just like, oh, God, thank God.
It went pretty quick for me. How did it go for you?
It went fast, but it was draining for me.
Okay, yeah. Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
Pretty
Besides it being
busy.
draining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
We've had like quite a lot happening, like, you know, this week. We've just today especially, we've just had Gladys announced that she is resigning
Hmm.
from her role as Premier of New South Wales. We've had a bit of the Sludgate scandal resurfacing again with the Victorian state government and looking at possibly, corruption as well as the inquiry going on and on, which is bringing more attention to something that I think they thought they had put to bed.
Hmm.
Um,
But wait,
so
there's
it'll be
more.
interesting. It'll be interesting to see what continues with the inquiry because um, the center of it, like obviously who's requested it, the company
Mm.
has said that Brett Sutton lied on the stand, only a couple days, not that long ago, and they want that to be obviously brought into before they do their recommendations and all that kind of stuff. So it's just very interesting
It's a mess.
how we've got New South Wales and Victoria, surrounded by scandals all the way up to the top. And then earlier this year, we obviously had um, the woman who came forward and the raping that happened in Parliament and how she got assurances that these people would be brought to justice, just to have the New South Wales government then throw it out and all that kind of scandal. So I just think it's very interesting how we've gone, it's a year on since Dan Andrews threw Jenny under the bus in the whole hotel quarantine inquiry. Also, I think it's interesting, if Gladys had been a male, would this have happened
Mm.
so severely and had such a detrimental impact on someone's career? I'm not sure, but I actually think women have been always judged more harshly.
Harshly.
Um, yeah, so we've had so much happen.
It's kind of just like we
Yeah,
forgot that we had an earthquake last week and all of this has happened.
yeah, and then obviously we on other news we had Melbourne breaking their drought, winning the AFL Grand Final.
After so
I
many
swore that I wasn't going to watch it. I watched it. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
years. Of course you did.
Have to eat my own words. Yeah, so
That's so
it was
funny.
pretty funny.
Should have seen like
Yeah,
the neighbors around me were just full on decorating their houses. Like it was so cute.
I
They full on
wanted,
went
I
for it.
wanted, I wanted Doggies to win, but then also at the same time, I was just like, no, Melbourne deserves it. They played a better game. They played way better on the day. So I was just like, James, no, the better team. The
Yeah.
best team did win. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's just been nuts. It's just been one thing after another. And then the
yeah.
case is growing because of
Yes, because of the AFL Grand
yeah,
Final.
AFL Grand
Is
Final, illegal
what they're
gatherings,
saying.
and oh, blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah. Just kept going and going. And it was
and it's
interesting that
also
one day we were like 800 and then we jumped to 1,400. And I was like, yeah, well,
yeah, it's pretty
I
crazy, and
anticipated
it's
that.
just like you keep on looking up at the you know, also today it got announced that all essential workers will need, it's mandated they have to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
So that came in today, which was quite interesting because we've got some people, obviously who
I
for
called
various
that
reasons.
last week. I'm just like, this is
You
what's going to happen.
did.
100%. I was just like, this is what's going to happen. It's just going to be mandatory in order to align with the international travel. And it's funny how that's kicked off as well, how they've allowed international flights.
I'm just like, I've got to do my passport because it has expired, so I need to go get that. I'm going away. I'm going traveling.
It's so like, as soon as they announce it, I'm just like, I know I shouldn't, but
I'm
just an
I'm going away
automatic
for
smile.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going LA. I'm thinking
No,
LA.
LA.
Where else was I thinking? Or Vancouver. I'm not sure.
I know Greece is out for
away.
me. I really wanted to go to Greece, but fires, bloody everything's happening there. I'll find a destination.
Yeah.
I feel like an island, maybe like Fiji or something, where I can just sit there and just be like,
Hawaii.
Yeah, freaking love Hawaii.
I've never been. That's
it's so
on my
chill.
list. Maybe I should go to Hawaii.
Can you imagine how discounted everything will be? Like
Maybe.
I said this like last year. I'm just like, when this is all kind of like done, it's not done. It's not even near done. But everything will just be, the economy is just trying to get, it's either going to be really expensive or really cheap.
I think expensive, because we've also got the tension going on in Australia with China. So Australia sat down with India, the US, and the UK and did a big alliance and pact, just basically being like how they're going to be more reliant on each other and how they're kind of moving away from China, which I think signals to China, big attention, really. You've got those countries with huge economies just basically saying that they're going to try and become more reliant on each other rather than reliant on China.
We'll see how long that works. Like, we'll see how long.
Yeah, and this week I watched Squid Game, which has been trending for a couple weeks now.
Christ, I've been all this week going on and on about this show, and there's so many theories. Oh yeah, you should have seen me. Like, I binge watched it. I was off on Tuesday. And
I was absolutely mortified. After the first episode, I was just emotionally drained. I think being in lockdown, I was like, this isn't the show for me. Why is this happening? And then I was like, James, calm down. Take a chill pill. It's just the show. But I don't know. There was something about it where I was like, I could see this happening. I know that's really
the whole thing. The author, the writer of the script was just like, he wanted to target socialism. Not socialism. What was it? Was it socialism? He had like this, and he wanted to tie it in with like things that he grew up with. So the games, like, it was so interesting. God, I loved it. I loved it. I literally went for it and couldn't turn it off.
Well, there's so many theories for season 2 and what will happen there. It was I was on the fence. I kept on being like, I like it, I don't like it. I like it, I don't like it. But I think what the biggest thing about it is that it challenged me. It was hard to watch for me. It was very violent.
But that's the thing, the culture, like Koreans, it's kind of just like, it's very interesting. But then at the same time, it kind of looks, I remember watching Hunger Games, and I used to be like, God, it's too much for me. That's like a child's TV show compared to this.
Yeah.
But apparently there's another it's a Japanese movie made in like 2000, and then
which they think that the Hunger Games
Battle Royale.
Yes. Yeah. We actually talked about this. It's funny. I've had similar conversations.
It's weird. And then
this week, obviously Battle Royale.
And then the second one is like 2003. But I would love to watch that. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. It's very interesting how this is it just keeps coming back, this murderous sort of vibe.
It also I didn't know anything of a book. I've been reading the Skin series, which was basically about they've conquered death. but they need to control the population. So they glean, so they kill people. And it's just based on different things. So people in society still have the task of killing people, but it's more confronting than ever because basically you're in a society where you can live forever. So it's actually quite traumatizing for the people.
Interesting, isn't
And
it?
that kind of makes sense because death was conquered, but then they need to control the population. So they
Mm.
glean. Because it gets to the point where they can revive anyone. But obviously they don't revive them. There's, laws and stuff. So that's kind of a very interesting, spin
That's
on
an
this.
interesting one. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're gonna make it into a movie. Yeah, they've
So
brought the
good.
rights. Yeah.
Nice.
So it'll be coming out as a movie. It's 3 books, it's a trilogy.
That's
But
good.
very dark as well. Yeah.
But I
And
remember like
then
I didn't know watching Squid Game what it was about. My friends like just watch it. And I'm like, oh, this looks all right. And then it just it just took off after that.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was about either. And then I was like, why did you tell me to watch this? I'm not enjoying it. And they're like, just stick with it. And then I did.
So
And then
good.
I was
Yeah.
like, it was good. Who was your favorite character?
Oh Jesus. I felt sorry for the Indian guy. Because it was just like
Oh, don't even.
no
No
spoiler alert.
Stop it.
Exactly. But it was just that guy. And there's a couple of characters in there, you're just like strong characters, I would say. Each one played their part.
Yeah.
But yeah,
My favorite was
bloody
the
Indian guy.
detective.
Oh, the detective, yeah. I called
Yeah.
that too. I was just like,
I
I'm
knew
pretty sure.
that was gonna happen too.
I thought, but I didn't get the end. Like, we won't say what it is, but the end, I was just like, no. And there's the theory about that too.
I was kind of struggling to like piece that together. Then I kind of did. I was like,
I was
do
nowhere
I
near.
buy it? And then I was like, okay, I'll buy that. But it was pretty predictable.
It's
I will
interesting
admit.
the camera
Because,
didn't show him though. The camera didn't show him, going to the next.
when they had to be paired off?
Yeah.
I knew the consequences of that. So I was just like, if I was playing the game, I would be choosing someone I didn't like.
I know, like obviously, like if they're just like choose a pair, how are they going to kill? Or what are they going to do?
Yeah. So should we introduce this week's topic?
Yes, fairy tales, James. We went from gore to fairy tales and fables.
Yeah.
Do you have one?
Yeah,
I have many.
Have one. Okay, I've got just one. So I'll just kind of focus on that. I'm going to disappear because I'm going to go to my resources and be talking about it. Nice. So just let me know. Yeah, you can still hear me. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, can still hear you.
Yeah, so I was researching about this. And obviously I was very curious, being gay, whether there was a story about, like a gay fairy tale.
That's actually quite interesting. Yeah.
So there was a gay fairy tale, but it had been lost for 200 years. And this is a bit of the story and the background behind it.
And it's back.
Yeah, so basically, obviously, LGBTQ characters have existed. However, there's been the perception that they don't exist from generation to generation because being queer was seen as taboo. And basically, this gay fairy tale can be traced back to the 19th century, and it has been discovered by a Cornish writer and illustrator who was, studying history and research. And within his research, he discovered the story, The Dog and the Sailor. And also, like, the biggest common thing, though, is that a huge chunk of the LGBTQ folklore has been deleted from our history because there was a homophobic man in the 1950s who was putting together, the old, fairy tales and folklore stories. And he basically like someone who with an agenda, they'll rewrite things and take things out so that the story no longer has those references. Or if he does want to have, a queer character, he was basically painting them either as a villain or someone more evil.
I think I can guess which one you're talking about.
His
quite keen
intentions are, so basically also another point to reference is obviously Cinderella, like can be traced back to China and the Tang dynasty. And I find that very, obviously interesting. But basically people stopped, telling, like, the whole fairy tales and that was very much people sitting around a fire and, telling stories to each other before they were written to books. So basically this one is been around for quite a while, but it wasn't in English. And basically, they have, this big discussion about how they had been filtering out LGBTQ characters for quite a while. So over 100 years, very few people edited a catalogue of the world's folklore with a system which logs different variations of tales across borders around the world. And they used the Arnie Thompson UFA tale type index to catalogue certain folklores for their structure and align them to Arnie Thompson's number. Sim Thompson, an American scholar and folklorist, one half of the duo who created this, system for documenting and categorizing folk tales from around the world. He got to work on, cataloging and was monumental in the erasing of much of the LGBTQ folklore. Unfortunately, by his account, Thompson brought with him to editing his sense of right and wrong. So therefore, in his head, he was doing the right thing because he believed in basically that homosexuality and lesbianism was unnatural perversions with ties to bestiality and incest. These were his views, and that's why he edited many of the stories in his catalogue, because he found them too perverse and unnatural to give them any light of day. So one guy got to choose and edit out the stories of what we know today as common fairy tales and folklores. So he basically was just deleting, a lot of what we know today in his references. So it actually takes a lot of research to, go back, because most of these folklores, and fairy tales are written in, languages tracing back to many, many centuries. So you need to have obviously expertise in being, language and all that kind of stuff. But most of his collection of what he collected in terms of fairy tales was basically, he represented LGBTQ characters who raped, privileged, and murder. So he was all too happy to paint the queers that got bashed up and imprisoned or sent to hell or murdered in these stories, and would often portray them as predatory and evil characters. But the light of this whole experience is obviously we had this guy who did his research because he was looking for a story about a prince and a sailor who fell in love, and he found one before it obviously got, rewritten into something else. So he was studying, his master's, and then he found this one that Thompson had missed, something inherently queer. So it's basically called The Dog and the Sea.
Oh, okay.
So basically, it's called, and then he's renamed it The Dog and the Sailor, is a gay fairy tale where the male sailor gets to kiss Prince Charming. So it's the sixth. So basically, he looked at over 600 tales in the archive, reading from a queer perspective, and like any, good fairy tale, his wish was to try and find something that he was able to, find a story that existed, and that was called The Dog and the Sea. And it was written in multiple languages, but not in English. So the languages he was able to find it in was Danish, German, Frisian, which I don't know where that is from, and others. And then checking Thompson's synopsis was correct and containing the same Alison motifs, he found an unbelievably and fabulously gay plot. You've got this guy who wants to be a sailor who goes on an adventure, winning the hand in marriage of a handsome prince. The witch in it is a fabulous and beautiful looking female who is strong and powerful, obviously, because she's a witch. But she turns away from that old cliche of being an ugly old, hound or whatnot. She's beautiful. Like, it's a twist on that. So the sailor's mother is a really, really overprotective and funny kind of character. And there's a bunch of like sexual innuendos that keep on coming. And then the prince that he falls in love with is, like the perfect kind of person, like the dreamboat of who you'd want to be with. And ultimately, it's like an ancient trail with like a positive portrayal of a guy who is gay, who is the only person who can defeat the witch because he can resist her beauty. That's kind of what the funny thing is about it, is that she's trying to like woo him and thing, but he's not interested in her. So it's like a little like funny kind of take on that. And like the hidden gem is obviously we've got this like, beautiful woman who is a different take on a witch. You know how we often portray witches as these evil, like really, really ugly and old and haggard kind of people.
Yeah.
Where, this was different. And then, so basically, The Dog and the Sea was like traced back to older than the 1800s. And then he basically took this and he's created The Dog and the Sailor, which is the book, like a book that's out right now that you can get, obviously from your bookstore and everything, because he's done an adaptation of the original fairy tale. So it basically, the reason he loved the story so much is because of how the way it portrayed, obviously, represented a minority, a queer minority, and a story about male mental health, climate change. And it was groundbreaking even when he, first discovered it in history. And it's just basically a take on how Prince Charming, how a sailor is able to find his male love. And it's called The Dog and the Sailor is what the new one is called. And it just, I thought it was like a very interesting fairy tale that kind of flipped and brought into perspective how history has often been edited by the people who were in charge and power to, have their own agendas. So often the stories, that were about certain people have been a bit whitewashed or, themes being hidden that they couldn't be gay. So therefore, I just found it very interesting and something that's survived.
I like it. It's very different. I thought it would have been like Pinocchio or something, but I guess that's a father
Nah.
son, so that doesn't really work. That's
Yeah, so
good.
that's what I found. Basically, it's the dog and the sailor.
Very cool. Wouldn't mind giving that a read,
So
actually.
gay fairy tale lost for 200 years after it narrowly escaped being removed from history altogether.
There you go. It was just meant to be.
Yeah, I don't know. I just found that really like a hopeful kind of story in that history, you know, often is written by the winners, but often those stories and folklores still manage to survive somehow.
They just come through.
And
Yeah.
we learn the truth about it and that, you know,
It always
it's
comes
not
out.
what we thought. Yeah, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Jeez Louise. Well, I've got two mini ones.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've got two. One's from Ireland and one's from Korea. And it's a little like summary. And I thought these two were really cute. But
Yeah.
I've got one. It's called the seal skin. And it's Irish. Oh no, Iceland. It's from Iceland. My bad. And this story has a
Wow.
few like variations. Yeah, who would have thought, eh? But you get tales everywhere, it would seem. But this one is my like it's one of my favorites, I would say. So this story serves as a sort of it's kind of like the on the same path as the Little Mermaid, I would say. But following the marriage between a human man, the Selkie, apparently, no, and a Selkie. I don't know what a Selkie is. Selkies are oh, here we go. Selkies are beautiful, immortal women who live as seals in the water.
There you
But
go.
shed
I did not know that. Now I know.
a
So
Selkie.
like a shapeshifter.
Yeah. But shed their seal skin to walk on land. But even Selkies who marry human men will get homesick and pine away for the sea. This is a melancholy, simple tale, and it's extremely effective. It's different. I would say it's different. Not cheery like The Little Mermaid. Probably goes. I haven't read it. I think I've seen this before, like images of it, and it seems to be more appealing than The Little Mermaid. It's just the next level. I would say Little Mermaid's for kids. This is for like teenagers, I would say.
Yeah.
So that's one. And I found this since, you know, we're talking about Korea, might as well just talk about this one. It's called The Fox Sister from Korea. A spooky,
the what sister?
The Fox.
The Fox sister.
Sister.
Okay.
A spooky traditional, who would have thought it would be spooky? A spooky traditional Korean folk tale about the legendary Kumiho, a beautiful evil spirit that takes the form of nine-tailed fox and eats human hearts. It's kind of like that Pokemon or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the story, a man with 3 sons desperately wants a daughter. One night he prays, "Give me a daughter, even if she's a fox." And if there's one lesson to be learned from fairy tales, it's be careful what you wish for. This is one
100%.
of one of it's like a Western fairy tale in a way. It stuck with me. Yeah, it's just I'll leave it at that because actually if I read any more, it reveals the story.
You want some
In a
mystery?
nutshell, they get what they deserve. And so they wanted a daughter, they got a daughter, and then they had to pay the consequences, I would say. Very creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. The Koreans are very good at those types of stories.
Yeah, they're kind of like find a way, isn't it, to even like Japanese, all of them, like they're just that part of the world, I would say.
I think they also tell, like, they've got a very good cinema movement happening. You know, they're creating a lot of really amazing shows. Like, they were the creators of The Good Doctor. It was a South Korean show. It's on Netflix if you want to watch the original, which a lot of people say is better than the Western adaptation of it. There's this amazing movie. I can't remember the name of it, but one of my co-workers a few years ago was watching SBS and it came on, and it was the story of this kid who gets left with his grandmother, and she comes from the old part of society, which is like the farming and the agricultural kind of thing, and his mother is working in the city. So she basically dumps off the kid to her grandparents and then just goes to keep working, being very much like a businesswoman. Like she doesn't have the time to look after her kid. And it's very much a story about family, society, and what the old way and the new way, and, very much an assessment of what the old way has that the new way doesn't, and how it's kind of, I think a lot of Korean shows is like how you can get out of touch with
Modern day.
and the consequences of that, consequences of chasing money and not, human relationships. And I know I just found my colleague said it was an absolutely one of probably the best movies she's ever seen. And can't remember the name of it though, but you'll be able to find it. It's pretty, I think it won Best Foreign Film at the Academy Awards one year. So very much the grandparent can't read or write or something. I think that's another premise of the plot.
Oh my God.
So it's also about how, education also plays a factor in people's, socioeconomic situation as well. And then also in terms of society and how society views, them.
Yeah.
So obviously the daughter didn't really value her mother so much as just being like, here, look after my kid.
There's plenty out there. Even like I have a list like Portugal, Germany, Hans Christian Andersen, so Norway, like it just keeps going on and on.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, like the different fables, the different fairy tales and their hidden meanings, and teaches you like a lot of them, besides the fairy tales, like the core of it teaches you about life and what to look out for, what to be aware of. It's quite cool. I would love to be around a fire saying random fairy tales. Why not?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think like what was so cool in like this week's topic was being able to do a deep dive into searching for something that represents an aspect of me and trying to find it. And I felt like that was almost in a way enriching, seeing myself be represented somewhere.
Yeah. It's probably heaps that you don't know about as well.
Yeah, and also we
not
might never know
popularized.
about them because, like you said,
they'll
it's
always
just like,
seep
no.
through because it's the truth. Like, it's the truth, and there'll be more to come. You just can't delete something from history.
Also, like Milan is often referenced, now as like
such a good movie.
Trans, like obviously a woman trying to, be a man.
But interesting how it could just be so simple, isn't it? It could be that, and it could be just a woman just wanting to develop her name. Yeah.
Or maybe she only sees it as being a man can develop her name in that society.
Yeah. Well, that's a wrap.
Yeah.
Bye, James.
Bye, Jess. See you next week.
See ya. Bye. We'll still be in lockdown. Bye.
Bye.